The night was cold, darker than usual, and the streets were almost empty. Streetlights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the broken pavement. Somewhere in that silence walked a boy no more than 12 years old. His clothes were thin, worn out, and his shoes had holes that let the icy wind bite his feet. He kept his arms crossed against his chest, trying to keep warm in his small hand. Tightly closed, he carried only a few coins. They clinked softly whenever his fingers moved. Those coins were all he had left. Not enough for comfort, not enough for dreams, but maybe just enough for survival. The boy's stomach growled, but he ignored it. Hunger was no stranger to him. For days he had eaten little, sometimes only scraps he found near market stalls. Tonight the emptiness in his belly felt sharper, heavier. Still he walked, step after step, staring at the coins as if they could whisper the answer to his greatest question. Should he buy food for himself, or save the money for something else? His mind argued with his heart. One side told him to eat, to take care of his body. The other side whispered that tomorrow might bring something worse, an illness, a need greater than hunger. He was too young to think like an adult, yet life had forced him to. As he walked past a shuttered shop, a cold gust of wind made him shiver. He pulled his thin shirt closer, though it gave him little warmth. His eyes scanned the street. It was empty, quiet until he heard it. A sound. A weak sound. Soft and broken, drifting through the night like a whisper of pain. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then he heard it again. A cough. A cry. He stopped. His small heart began to beat faster. Somewhere near, voices were calling. Faint, fragile, almost begging for someone to hear them. The boy's eyes darted left and right. Across the street, near the corner of an abandoned building, he saw movement. Cautiously, he stepped closer, and then he saw them. An old couple sat, huddled against the wall. Their faces were pale, wrinkled, and tired. The man's beard was white, and his hands shook as he tried to cover his wife with a torn blanket. The woman leaned against him, coughing heavily, her breath shallow and weak. Their eyes looked empty, filled with both pain and hopelessness. The boy froze. For a moment he felt fear. These strangers looked sick, fragile, almost like shadows of death. But then his fear turned into something else spitty. His small hand tightened around the coins. The old man noticed him and raised his trembling hand. "Son," the man whispered, his voice hoarse. "Please. Medicine. We need medicine, my wife. She is sick." The woman coughed again, her body shaking as if her lungs were on fire. The boy's heart ached at the sight. He stepped closer, unsure if he should speak. I don't have much," he said quietly, his voice almost lost in the wind. The man's eyes filled with tears. "Anything. Please. Even a little. We cannot. We cannot afford medicine. And she will not last the night." The boy looked down at his coins. They rested in his palm, small and dull, reflecting the weak glow of the streetlight. He could almost taste the bread he could buy with them. He imagined the warm piece of food in his hands, the relief it would bring to his empty stomach. But then he looked back at the old woman. Her cough echoed through the night, painful and sharp. Her frail hands clutched the blanket as if holding on to life itself. He was torn. For a long moment, the boy stood there in silence, listening to the woman's coughs, the man's pleas, and his own stomach crying out for food. His eyes watered, though he tried to hold back the tears. Slowly, carefully, he whispered to himself, "Food can wait. They cannot." With trembling hands, he closed his fist around the coins. Then, without another word, he turned and ran down the street. His feet carried him quickly, past the corner, past the shadows, until he reached a small pharmacy with a flickering sign. The shop was almost closing, but the dim light inside told him someone was still there. He pushed the door open. A bell rang weakly above his head. The pharmacist, an old man with glasses, looked up from the counter. He raised his eyebrows at the sight of the boy. "What do you want, child?" he asked in a rough voice. The boy hesitated, then pointed toward the medicine shelf. "Please, cough medicine. Something. Something for an old woman." She is very sick." The pharmacist frowned, studying the boy's torn clothes and dirty hands. He asked suspiciously, "Do you have money?" The boy opened his palm and placed the few coins on the counter. They clinked as they landed, looking small and powerless against the polished wood. The pharmacist sighed, shaking his head. "This is hardly enough." But he looked at the boy's determined eyes and paused. Something in that gaze reminded him of innocence, of desperation, of sacrifice. Slowly, he reached for a small bottle. "Take this. It is not much, but it should help." The boy grabbed the bottle with both hands, as if holding treasure. His eyes shone with relief. "Thank you. Thank you so much," he whispered. He turned and ran back into the night. The street seemed colder now, the shadows longer. But the boy didn't care. He clutched the medicine tightly as he hurried back to the old couple. When he arrived, the man's eyes widened in shock. You came back." The boy knelt beside them and placed the medicine in the man's shaking hands. The old man's eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "Bless you, child. Bless you." The woman took a weak sip, coughing less after a moment. A faint smile touched her lips, though her face still looked tired. The boy sat beside them for a while, watching silently. He felt hunger gnawing at him, sharper than ever. Yet strangely, his heart felt full, warm, strong. For the first time in a long while, he felt that maybe he wasn't alone. Maybe kindness still mattered in this dark, it's a cold world. But he didn't know. He couldn't know that someone had seen everything from across the street. Behind the dark window of a black car, a pair of sharp eyes watched the boy. A man in a suit sat quietly, observing every move. He saw the coins, the sacrifice, the choice, and he smiled. The boy had no idea that his small act of kindness was about to change his life forever. The night grew colder. Clouds drifted across the sky, covering the thin moonlight. The streets were almost silent, except for the distant barking of a stray dog. But on the corner of that abandoned building, the old couple remained. Shivering in the cruel wind, the old man held the torn blanket tighter around his wife, though it barely covered her frail body. His beard trembled in the breeze, and his eyes carried the weight of both fear and exhaustion. The woman leaned weakly against him, her breath uneven, her body rattling with each cough. They had once known warmth, once known family, once known a home. But now they were forgotten by the world. Just two shadows fading away in the dark. The boy returned, running with a small bottle of medicine clutched tightly in his hand. His chest heaved as he reached them, his breath fogging in the cold air. The old man lifted his head, surprised. His tired eyes widened. You came back?" His voice broke with disbelief. The boy knelt down quickly, placing the bottle in the old man's trembling hands. "Here, I bought this for her. It will help. Please, give it to her." The old man stared at the bottle as if it were a miracle. Tears filled his eyes. He opened it with difficulty and helped his wife take a small sip. The woman's coughing slowed a little. Her breathing, though still heavy, seemed to ease. She looked at the boy with weak eyes that still carried warmth. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. The boy sat down on the cold ground beside them. His body shivered, but his heart felt strangely steady. The old man whispered, his voice breaking, "Son, you gave us medicine instead of keeping the coins for yourself. Why, you are just a child. Why would you help us?" The boy looked down at his hands. His fingers were rough from hardship, his stomach still twisted in hunger. He spoke softly, "Because I know what it feels like to be alone. I know what it feels like to need something and have no one to help. If I can do even a little, I should." The old man's tears spilled down his cheeks. He placed his hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "You are a blessing, child. A light in this darkness." The boy said nothing. He simply looked at the woman, who now rested more calmly, her hand still clutching the blanket. But even as the moment softened, the boy's own hunger roared within him. His stomach growled loudly, breaking the silence. He quickly placed a hand over it, embarrassed. The old man noticed and frowned. "Have you eaten, son?" The boy shook his head slowly. "Not tonight." The man's eyes filled with pain. He had nothing to offer, no food, no shelter. He whispered, "You helped us, even when you were starving. I wish I could give you something in return." The boy forced a small smile. "It's okay. You need it more than I do." But deep inside, his body ached with weakness. His lips were dry, his chest felt heavy. Still, he refused to regret his choice. The three of them sat quietly in the night, sharing the silence. The old couple leaned on each other, while the boy sat close, like a forgotten grandchild returned by fate. Yet, none of them realized they were not alone. Across the street, hidden in the shadows, the black car still waited. The man inside leaned forward, his sharp eyes fixed on the boy. He had watched everything, the sacrifice, the medicine, the hunger. And now, he watched the boy sit beside the old couple as if they were his family. The man's lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. "Interesting," he murmured. "Very interesting." But he made no move yet. He simply waited, observing. Back on the street corner, the cold grew harsher. The boy's teeth began to chatter. The old woman noticed and reached out with her trembling hand, pulling the blanket slightly to cover his thin shoulders. "You are just a child," she whispered weakly. "And yet you gave more than most grown men. May God watch over you." The boy's throat tightened, but he didn't cry. He simply nodded. The night stretched on. The street remained empty. But in that little corner, three souls sat together, bound not by blood, but by kindness. The boy had no idea that this choice, this sacrifice, would soon bring someone to his door. A visitor who would change everything. For now, he only knew hunger, cold, and silence. But beyond the shadows, destiny was already moving closer. The night carried on, colder than before. The boy sat beside the old couple, his thin arms wrapped around his knees. His stomach growled again, louder this time, but he tried to ignore it. The sound echoed in the empty street. A reminder that he had chosen to buy medicine instead of food. He pressed a hand to his belly, as though to quiet the hunger inside. His head felt light, and his lips were dry. Yet even in this weakness, his heart carried something stronger than pain. The memory of the woman's faint smile when she drank the medicine. That small smile was worth more to him than 100 pieces of bread. The old man noticed the boy's pale face and sighed. "Child, you are hungry. You should have bought something for yourself." The boy shook his head. His voice was quiet, but steady. "No, if I ate, I would be full tonight." "But your wife? She might not live till morning." Medicine was more important. The man's eyes glistened. He wanted to argue, but words failed him. His throat closed, and tears slipped down his face. The woman stirred, coughing softly. She reached out her hand toward the boy. Her fingers were frail, almost weightless, yet her touch carried warmth. "Bless you, my son," she whispered. The boy took her hand gently, careful not to hurt her. "Rest now. You will feel better soon." For a while, silence filled the air. The boy looked up at the sky. Stars peeked through the clouds, faint and far away. He wondered if his parents, wherever they were, could see him now. Maybe they would be proud. Maybe they would smile at him, the way the old woman had. His eyes grew heavy. Exhaustion pulled at his body, but he forced himself to stay awake. He wanted to make sure the old couple was safe. The old man, seeing the boy's struggle, asked softly, "Where is your home, child?" The boy hesitated. His lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Finally he said, "Nowhere. I sleep where I can. Sometimes in an alley, sometimes near the market. Home is gone." The man's heart broke at those words. He tightened his arm around his wife, guilt pressing down on him. He had nothing to give this boy, no shelter, no food, only gratitude. The boy lowered his head, his thoughts drifting. He remembered times when he had a home, when his mother's voice filled the rooms with warmth. But those days had faded into memories. Now, he only had the streets, the cold, and the few coins that sometimes found their way into his hands. Tonight those coins were gone, spent not on himself, but on strangers. And yet, deep inside, he did not regret it. He whispered to himself, almost like a promise, hunger will pass. But kindness? Kindness stays. The old man heard those words and felt a lump in his throat. He could not believe that such wisdom came from a child. A child who had given up his last chance at comfort just to save two forgotten souls. Hours passed slowly. The street grew quieter, the wind harsher. The boy trembled in the cold. Still, he stayed beside them, his small body acting like a shield. He did not move away. He did not abandon them. But somewhere nearby, unseen by the three of them, destiny was watching. The black car still waited in the shadows. Inside, the man in the suit leaned back in his seat. His eyes were sharp, his mind deep in thought. He had witnessed every moment the boy's sacrifice, his hunger, his courage. The man spoke softly to himself. A child who gives away his last coins. Rare, very rare. His driver, sitting silently at the wheel, glanced at him but said nothing. He knew better than to interrupt. The man's gaze returned to the boy. His lips curved into a faint smile. Let us see what this child chooses tomorrow. Back on the corner, the boy finally leaned against the wall. His eyes closed, his breathing slow. He was too tired to fight sleep any longer. The old man whispered a prayer for him, thanking the heavens for sending this little angel. The woman, weak but comforted, rested her head on her husband's shoulder. The night wrapped them in its silence. But as the boy slept, hunger gnawed at him, sharper than ever. His dreams were filled with images of bread, warm soup, and his mother's voice. Each time he reached for the food in his dream, it vanished, replaced by the echo of coins dropping onto a counter, even in his dreams. His sacrifice followed him. The boy stirred, muttering softly, but did not wake. His body was weak, but his spirit was strong. And so the night passed, three souls huddled together in the cold, unaware that fate was already preparing the next chapter of their lives. By morning, the boy would face a knock on his door. A knock that would bring the unexpected. A knock that would leave him speechless. But for now, all that remained was silence, hunger, and the quiet strength of a sacrifice that would change everything. The night had swallowed the city whole. The streetlights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Cold winds rushed through the empty alleys, making the boy shiver as he sat against the wall. Close to the old couple, the woman's coughing had grown softer after the medicine, though her breath was still heavy. The old man kept watch over her, pulling the blanket higher to shield her from the biting air. Every few moments he glanced at the boy, his heart heavy with both gratitude and sorrow. The boy's eyes were half closed. His thin body trembled with weakness, and his lips were pale. Hunger gnawed at him, sharp and cruel. It wasn't the simple hunger of skipping one meal. It was the deep, aching hunger of days without enough food. His stomach growled loudly in the silence, echoing in the street like the cry of an empty soul. He wrapped his arms tighter around himself. Each breath he took came out as a puff of white fog in the cold air. The old man whispered, "Child, you should go, find food. You need to eat." The boy shook his head slowly. "No, I can't leave you alone. What if she needs more help?" His voice was weak, but steady, filled with determination. The man's eyes watered. "But you are starving." The boy forced a small smile. "I have been starving before. This is nothing new." His words struck the old man like a blade. How could a child speak so calmly about hunger? What kind of life had he lived to make such suffering sound ordinary? The woman stirred slightly, opening her eyes for a brief moment. She looked at the boy and whispered, her voice faint as a breath. "You remind me of my son. Long ago, we lost him." Her eyes filled with tears as she touched the boy's hand weakly. "But tonight, you feel like he has returned." The boy's heart tightened. For a moment, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, like he belonged somewhere. He held her frail hand gently and whispered, "I will stay with you." The old couple exchanged a look, one filled with both sorrow and gratitude. The minutes passed slowly, each one heavier than the last. Hunger continued to tear at the boy. He leaned his head back against the wall, staring up at the sky. The stars were dim, scattered across the darkness. He wondered how many nights he had spent like this, hungry, cold, alone. But tonight was different. Tonight, he wasn't alone. Tonight, his hunger had meaning. His thoughts drifted. He remembered when he still had his parents. His mother's gentle hands, his father's laughter, the smell of warm food in their small home. Those memories came back like fading lanterns in the dark, bright but far away. He closed his eyes. His chest ached with longing, but also with strength. "I can endure this," he whispered to himself. "I must." The old man leaned closer. "Rest, child. We will be fine for now. You need sleep." The boy nodded, though sleep was not easy when hunger clawed at his insides. Still, exhaustion pulled him down. His eyes grew heavier, and soon he drifted into a restless slumber. In his dreams, he saw bread-soft, warm, golden bread. He reached out to take it, but as soon as his fingers touched it, the bread crumbled into dust. Then he saw his mother's face, smiling at him gently. She reached out her hand, but when he tried to hold it, she vanished into shadows. The boy whimpered in his sleep. Turning against the wall, the old man watched him, whispering to himself, "What kind of world is this, where a child suffers to save two old souls like us?" Tears slid down his cheeks, disappearing into his white beard. But while the boy slept, the night was not silent. Across the street, the black car remained parked. Inside, the man in the suit still observed quietly. His sharp eyes followed every detail: the boy's trembling body, his refusal to eat, sacrifice. He leaned back in his seat, his mind calculating. He gives everything, even when he has nothing. This child is no ordinary child. The driver shifted uncomfortably, finally speaking in a low voice. "Sir, shall we leave?" "It's only a poor boy." The man in the suit shook his head slowly. "No. Tomorrow will decide everything." His tone carried weight, promise of something yet unseen. Back on the corner, the boy stirred awake for a moment. His hunger was sharper now, almost painful. He pressed a hand against his stomach, groaning softly. But then he looked at the old woman sleeping more peacefully than before, and his pain seemed smaller. He whispered to himself, "If she is safe, it is worth it." The night dragged on. The wind howled through the streets. Hunger burned within him, but he did not move, did not abandon them. And as the sky slowly began to lighten with the first gray hints of dawn, the boy's sacrifice stood as a silent witness to the power of kindness. He did not know what the morning would bring. He did not know that someone, somewhere, had been watching his every move. He only knew hunger, exhaustion, and the quiet strength of a heart that refused to give up. The dawn was coming, and with it, a knock that would change everything. The first light of dawn crept slowly over the city. The sky shifted from black to gray, then to a pale orange glow that touched the rooftops and empty streets. The night had been long, cruel, and cold. The boy stirred awake. His body felt heavy, weak from hunger. His lips were cracked and his stomach twisted painfully. Yet when he opened his eyes and looked at the old couple beside him, a faint smile touched his face. The woman's breathing was steadier now. Her cough had softened, and her skin no longer looked as pale as before. She still looked fragile, but she was alive because of the medicine. The boy rubbed his eyes and whispered softly, "Thank God." The old man noticed he was awake. His wrinkled face broke into a tired smile. "Good morning, child. You stayed with us the whole night," the boy nodded. "I said I would not leave you." The old man placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You gave us hope when we had none, but you look weak. You need food." The boy lowered his head, embarrassed. "I will be fine." His words were brave, but his body trembled as he stood. The woman opened her eyes, her voice weak but gentle. "You are like the son we lost. You remind me of him. Last night, when you brought the medicine, it felt like God had sent you in his place." The boy's throat tightened. He could not speak. Instead, He only gave a small nod, his eyes glistening. What none of them knew was that they had been watched. Across the street, hidden behind tinted glass, the black car was still parked. Inside sat the man in the suit, sharp-eyed, calm, and unreadable. He had been there all night, silently observing every moment the sacrifice, the hunger, the kindness. He leaned slightly forward, his gaze fixed on the boy. His lips curved into a faint smile, one that carried both curiosity and purpose. The driver, tired from the long night, glanced at him. "Sir, it is only a poor boy. Why stay here so long?" The man in the suit did not look away, because this child is not ordinary. Did you see how he chose medicine over food? How he endured hunger without complaint? He is different. The driver frowned. Different? He is just another beggar. The man's eyes narrowed. No, he has something most people have lost: selflessness. He gave his last coins for strangers. That kind of heart cannot be ignored. The driver fell silent, realizing his master had already made up his mind. Back on the street corner, the boy helped the old woman sit up. He offered her the blanket and smiled faintly. Though he had nothing left, not food, not money, not even strength, his spirit remained unbroken. The old man whispered, "We prayed for a miracle, and you came." "You are a miracle, child." The boy shook his head. "I am no miracle. I only did what anyone should do." The man in the car heard those words from afar, though faintly through the crack of his window. His smile grew deeper. Humility, too, very rare. Hours passed. The city slowly awoke. People began to walk the streets, going to work, opening shops, carrying baskets. Yet no one stopped for the boy or the old couple. To the world, they were invisible, forgotten, but not to the man in the car. He watched closely, his mind working in silence. Finally, he spoke to his driver. "Tonight, follow him. I want to know where he sleeps." The driver raised his eyebrows. "Why, sir?" The man leaned back, his eyes thoughtful. "Because tomorrow I will visit him. And when I knock on his door, his life will never be the same again." Back on the street, the boy stretched his weak arms. He was dizzy from hunger, but he forced himself to smile at the old couple. "I should go now. You need rest. I will come back later." The woman touched his hand. "Be safe, my child. Wherever you go, may God's blessings follow you." The boy nodded, his eyes wet, though he tried to hide it. He turned and walked slowly down the street, his thin figure disappearing into the crowd of mourning workers. The old couple watched him go, whispering prayers for him, but from across the street, the black car pulled out silently. Following at a distance, the boy had no idea he was being watched. He had no idea that his every step was now a thread in a story much bigger than himself, and as the sun rose higher, the man in the suit whispered under his breath, "Tomorrow. The boy will learn what destiny truly means." The secret witness had chosen his moment. And soon the boy's sacrifice would be repaid in ways he could never imagine. The night had passed slowly, leaving the boy with little rest. Hunger twisted inside him like a cruel rope, but he had endured it. When he finally reached the small abandoned shelter where he often slept, he collapsed on the wooden floor. The walls were cracked, and the roof leaked whenever it rained. But to him, it was still a place to hide from the streets. He curled up in the corner, hugging himself for warmth. The air inside was damp, and the smell of dust filled his nose. But exhaustion was stronger than discomfort. His eyelids grew heavy. Soon he drifted into a restless sleep. His dreams were filled with echoes of the old couple's voices. He saw the woman coughing, then smiling faintly after drinking the medicine. He saw the man's trembling hands as he whispered blessings. And through it all, he heard his own mother's voice, soft and kind, as if she were watching him from another world. When morning came, light crept slowly through the broken window. The boy stirred, rubbing his eyes. His body felt weak, but his spirit carried a quiet strength. He sat up, brushing dust from his clothes, and thought to himself, "I must check on the old couple today." But before he could stand, A sound startled him. Knock, knock. Knock. The boy froze. His small shelter rarely had visitors. No one ever came to see him. His heart raced. The knocking came again, louder this time. He stood slowly, his legs shaking. Who could it be? Fear and curiosity fought inside him. Carefully, he stepped toward the old wooden door and pressed his ear against it. Silence followed. With trembling hands, he pulled the rusty handle and opened the door just a crack. What he saw left him speechless. A tall man stood outside, dressed in a dark suit, polished shoes, and a long coat. His face was sharp, his eyes steady and piercing. He looked nothing like the people the boy usually saw in the streets. He looked important, powerful, almost unreal. The boy's breath caught in his throat. He tried to speak, but no words came. The man smiled faintly, not unkindly. "Good morning, child," he said in a deep, calm voice. The boy opened the door a little wider, though his body shook with nerves. "Gee." "Good morning, sir." The man studied him for a moment, as though seeing every detail: the boy's torn clothes, his thin arms, his tired eyes. Then he asked softly, "Do you know why I am here?" The boy shook his head quickly. "No, sir." The man's smile grew just a little. "I watched you last night." The boy's eyes widened. You watched me?" "Yes," the man replied. "I saw what you did. You had only a few coins, yet you spent them on medicine for strangers instead of food for yourself. Tell me, why'd you do that?" The boy's throat went dry. He lowered his head, staring at the dusty floor. His voice was small, but steady. "Because they needed it more than I did." The man tilted his head. "Even though you were starving?" The boy nodded. "Hunger will pass. But if she had no medicine, she might not live. I could not let that happen." The man's eyes softened, though his expression remained serious. He studied the boy for a long moment, then said quietly, "You are remarkable." The boy frowned in confusion. "Remarkable? I am just me." The man chuckled lightly. "Yes, that is what makes it remarkable." For a moment, silence hung in the air. The boy felt both nervous and curious. He did not know who this stranger was, or why he had come, but he sensed something important was happening. Finally, the man stepped closer. "Child, I want you to come with me." The boy's eyes widened. "Come with you? Where?" The man's smile returned, calm and confident. "To a place where you will not have to starve again. A place where kindness like yours is rewarded, not forgotten." The boy's heart pounded. Could this be true? Or was it a trick? He looked at the man's clean suit, his polished shoes, his expensive car parked nearby. Everything about him felt like a world far away from the streets. Fear crept into the boy's chest. He shook his head quickly. I don't know you." The man raised a hand gently. "I understand. You are wise to be careful. But let me tell you, this kindness like yours does not go unseen. You gave when you had nothing. And now it is time someone gives to you." The boy hesitated. His stomach growled loudly again, betraying his hunger. His face flushed with embarrassment. The man noticed and said softly, "You are hungry. Come with me, eat. Then decide if you wish to stay." The boy's mind swirled. He thought of the old couple. He thought of his empty stomach. He thought of the man's sharp but kind eyes. Finally, with a shaky breath, he nodded slowly. "All right, I will come." The man's smile deepened, but his eyes carried mystery. "Good. You will not regret this, child." The boy stepped outside, the cold morning air brushing against his skin. The man led him toward the shiny black car waiting nearby. Its door opened silently, as if it had been waiting for this very moment. As the boy climbed in, his heart pounded faster. He had never sat in such a vehicle before. The seats were soft, the air smelled clean, and the silence inside felt different, powerful. The man sat beside him, watching quietly. The car began to move, gliding through the streets like a shadow. The boy looked out the window, the city passing by. Questions filled his mind, but he was too afraid to ask. He only whispered to himself, "What is happening to me?" The man in the suit, hearing him, leaned forward slightly. "What is happening, child, is the beginning of your new life." The boy turned, his eyes wide with both fear and hope, but the man said no more. He only sat back, his face unreadable. As the car carried them toward a future the boy could not yet imagine, and in his small shelter, now empty, the echo of the morning knock lingered in the air like the sound of destiny. Itself, the black car glided smoothly through the busy streets, its windows dark enough to hide the boy from curious eyes. He sat quietly, his hands folded in his lap, trying to understand what was happening. For so long, he had walked everywhere on tired feet. But now here he was, seated in a car that looked and felt like it belonged to another world. Every corner, every smooth turn of the wheels, made him feel as if he had stepped into a dream. The man in the suit sat beside him, calm and silent. His sharp eyes studied the city passing by outside, yet he never stopped noticing the boy's nervous movements. Finally, the man spoke. "You are wondering who I am, aren't you?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. I don't understand why you came for me." The man gave a faint smile. "In time, you will. But first, I want you to know your kindness did not go unseen. I was there, watching when you chose to give your last coins to the old couple. That moment told me everything I needed to know about you." The boy blinked in surprise. "Everything? But I am no one. I am just a poor boy." The man's voice grew deeper, steadier. "No, child. You are not just anything. You are proof that goodness still exists in a world where many have forgotten it." The boy lowered his eyes, embarrassed. "I only did what was right." The man's lips curved into the smallest smile. "Exactly. And that is what makes you different." The car slowed, turning into a quieter part of the city. The boy pressed his face closer to the window, watching tall buildings give way to wide streets lined with trees. Soon, the car stopped in front of a large iron gate. The gate opened slowly, as if welcoming them. Behind it stretched a grand house with wide steps, tall windows, and walls that seemed to shine under the sunlight. The boy's eyes widened. He had never seen such a place in his life. "Come," the man said. Stepping out of the car, the boy followed, his legs trembling. His torn shoes touched the clean stone path leading to the house. Everything around him felt unreal. The smell of flowers, sound of birds, the silence of wealth. They climbed the steps together, and the door opened before they could knock. A servant bowed slightly and stepped aside, allowing them in. The boy gasped as he entered. The house was more beautiful inside than outside. The floor was polished marble, so shiny he could see his own reflection. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, sparkling like stars. Paintings lined the walls, and soft carpets covered the floor. He whispered under his breath, "This cannot be real." The man in the suit glanced at him. "It is real. And you are here for a reason?" The boy swallowed hard. "What reason?" Before the man could answer, a new voice echoed from the staircase above. "So, this is the boy?" The boy turned his head quickly. His eyes landed on another man descending the staircase. This man was older, his hair silver, but his step strong. He wore a white shirt and vest, his expression sharp but curious. The boy froze. He had never seen this man before, but something about his presence filled the room with power. The man in the suit nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir. This is the one." The older man walked closer, his eyes never leaving the boy. He circled him slowly, as if studying him. The boy's heart pounded. At last, the older man stopped in front of him. "You gave away your last coins for people you did not know." The boy nodded nervously. "Yes, sir. You had nothing left for yourself, yet you still gave." "Yes, sir." The older man's eyes narrowed. "Why?" The boy hesitated, his voice shaking. Because I know what it feels like to suffer. I know what it feels like to have no one. I could not walk away when I saw them in pain. If I could help even a little, I had to." The room grew silent. The servants nearby lowered their heads, moved by his words. The man in the suit gave the faintest smile of approval. The older man studied the boy's face a little longer. Then, suddenly, he laughed out with mockery, but with something like admiration. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. The boy blinked, unsure if he had done something wrong. The older man leaned closer, his voice steady. "Do you know who I am, child?" The boy shook his head. "I am a man many call a millionaire," the older man said calmly. "But wealth means little when you cannot trust the world around you. I have met many who wanted my money, but few who showed true kindness without expecting reward. And now here you are." The boy's mouth opened slightly in shock. A millionaire. Standing right before him, the older man continued, his eyes softening. "Last night I was nearby. I saw everything. You could have chosen yourself, but instead you chose others. That is a rare gift." The boy felt his chest tighten with emotion. He had never expected anyone to notice, let alone someone this powerful. The older man placed a hand on his shoulder. "From this moment, your life will change. But the choice is yours, child. Will you allow me to help you?" The boy's eyes filled with tears. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Why me? There are so many others like me." The millionaire's voice grew soft. "Because you knocked on destiny's door without knowing it, and now destiny has come knocking on yours?" The boy lowered his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen. He felt valued. The older man spoke again, stronger now. "Rest today. Eat. Tomorrow, we will talk about your future." Servants appeared, guiding the boy toward a dining hall. The smell of food filled the air: warm bread, fresh soup, roasted meat. His stomach growled loudly, and the servants smiled kindly at him. He sat at the table, his hand shaking as he reached for the bread. He had never seen so much food in one place. Tears fell as he whispered, "Thank you, God," from the doorway. The millionaire and the man in the suit watched quietly. The older man said softly, "He is not ordinary." The man in the suit nodded. "No, sir. He is the beginning of something greater." The millionaire's eyes gleamed with mystery. "Then let us see how far kindness can take him." And as the boy took his first bites of real food in days, he had no idea that this was only the beginning, that the unexpected visitor in his life would change everything forever. The grand dining hall was filled with the smell of freshly baked bread and warm soup. The boy ate slowly at first, unsure if he was allowed to take more. But the servants encouraged him with kind smiles, and soon his trembling hands reached for a second piece of bread. Tears welled in his eyes as he tasted real food after days of hunger. From the doorway, the millionaire watched in silence. His sharp eyes softened for a moment, but then grew thoughtful again. He turned to the man in the suit and whispered, "Kindness must be tested. One good deed may be luck, but if his heart is pure, it will show again and again." The man in the suit nodded. "What do you plan to do, sir?" The millionaire's gaze lingered on the boy, who bowed his head in gratitude after every bite. "Tomorrow," he said slowly, "we will begin." The next morning, the boy awoke in a soft bed for the first time in his life. The blanket was warm, the sheets clean, and sunlight poured through the tall windows. For a moment he thought he was still dreaming. But when he sat up and saw the grand room around him, he knew it was real. He whispered to himself, "How can this be my life?" A gentle knock came at the door. A servant entered carrying a neat set of clothes. "The master asks you to join him for breakfast," she said kindly. The boy dressed quickly, though he felt shy in the new clothes. They were simple compared to the millionaire's suits, yet far finer than anything he had worn before. Down in the dining hall, the millionaire was already seated. His silver hair gleamed in the morning light, and his presence filled the room with authority. The man in the suit stood nearby, silent as always. "Good morning, child," the millionaire said. "Good morning, sir," the boy replied, bowing his head. The millionaire gestured to the table. "Eat, you will need strength today." The boy tilted his head in confusion. "Strength, sir?" The millionaire's lips curved into a faint smile. "Yes, because today I have a test for you." The boy froze. His heart pounded. A test. The older man leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. Yesterday, you showed kindness with your last coins. But true character is not proven in one moment. I want to know if your heart is always the same, no matter the situation. So I will test you. The boy lowered his eyes nervously. What if I fail? The millionaire's eyes grew sharper. Then you will return to the streets. But if you pass, your life will change forever. The boy's hand shook slightly as he gripped his bread. He whispered, I will try, sir. The millionaire nodded. Good, then listen carefully. Later that day, the boy walked down a busy street with the man in the suit beside him. The millionaire had given him a small pouch of coins and told him simply, do what feels right. The boy looked around. Vendors shouted about fresh fruit. Children begged on the corners. A man played music on a broken guitar. People pushed past one another, rushing, hurrying. Living their busy lives, the man in the suit remained silent, only watching. The boy knew every step was being judged. Soon, the boy noticed a child sitting near the steps of a bakery. The child was barefoot, his face pale, his eyes hollow with hunger. He looked exactly how the boy had felt so many nights. The boy stopped walking. His heart tightened. He opened the pouch, counted the coins, and then walked to the bakery. He bought a small loaf of bread and handed it to the hungry child. The child's face lit up with joy. Thank you, brother, he cried, hugging the bread tightly. The boy smiled, tears stinging his eyes. Eat well, little one. The man in the suit, watching closely, said nothing. But inside, he noted carefully what had happened. The day was not over. The millionaire had planned more. A short while later, they passed an old woman struggling to carry heavy firewood. Her back bent under the weight, and people simply walked past, ignoring her. The boy hurried forward. Let me help you, grandmother. She looked at him in surprise. But you are only a child. I am strong enough, the boy replied. He lifted part of the load from her shoulders and carried it with her until she reached her small hut. The woman placed her hand on his head, blessing him. May you never be alone in your time of need. The boy bowed slightly, smiling. Thank you, grandmother. Again, the man in the suit remained silent, but his eyes gleamed faintly. By evening, the boy had used almost all the coins not for himself, but for others. He bought bread for hungry children, helped a man push his broken cart, and even gave his last coin to a beggar who sat weeping by the roadside. When the pouch was empty, the boy sighed but smiled softly. It is gone. But it was worth it. The man in the suit finally spoke. You kept nothing for yourself. Not even one coin? Why? The boy looked at him, his eyes steady. Because I know hunger. I know loneliness. If I could ease their pain even a little, that is enough for me. The man in the suit studied him carefully, then nodded once. Back at the mansion, the millionaire waited in his study. When the boy entered, his clothes dusty from the day's work, the older man looked up. Well? The millionaire asked. The man in the suit stepped forward. He gave everything, sir. Not a coin was left for himself. He helped everyone he could. The millionaire leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. Is that so? The boy lowered his head, nervous. I did what I thought was right. Silence filled the room. Then, slowly, the millionaire rose to his feet. He walked toward the boy and placed both hands on his thin shoulders. His voice was deep, steady, and filled with weight. You passed the test. The boy gasped softly. I did. Yes, the millionaire said. You proved today that kindness is not a single act. It is who you are. Even when given the chance to think of yourself, you thought of others. That is the rarest gift of all. The boy's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, Thank you, sir. But I only did what my heart told me. The millionaire smiled faintly. And that is why, child, your life is about to change in ways you cannot imagine. The boy trembled, hope and fear swirling inside him. He did not know what the millionaire truly meant. But he felt something greater waiting ahead. And as the night grew darker outside, the mansion seemed to glow with light because inside, destiny had already begun its work. The mansion was quiet that night. The servants had finished their work, the hallways were dim, and only a few lamps glowed softly in the corners. The boy sat near the window of his room, staring at the sky. For years, the stars had been his only companions when he slept on the streets. But tonight, he was in a warm bed, wearing clean clothes. And yet his heart still felt restless. He whispered to himself, "Why me? Why has this man chosen me?" The question lingered in his mind until sleep finally pulled him away. Early the next morning, the boy was called to the millionaire's study. The room was grand, filled with tall shelves of books, heavy curtains, and a large desk. The millionaire sat behind it, his silver hair glowing in the sunlight streaming through the windows. The man in the suit stood silently nearby. The boy entered nervously. He bowed slightly. "Good morning, sir." The millionaire gestured for him to sit. "Come, child. We must talk." The boy sat down, his hands resting on his knees. The older man's sharp eyes studied him for a moment. "You are probably wondering why I'm helping you." The boy nodded. "Yes, sir. I am grateful, but I do not understand. There are many poor children. Why me?" The millionaire leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping lightly on the desk. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, he spoke in a steady voice. "Because, child, I see myself in you." The boy blinked, confused. "You see yourself in me?" The older man nodded slowly. "Yes. Many years ago, I too was poor. Not just desperate. Hungry, cold, forgotten. I know what it feels like to have nothing, to watch people walk past you as if you are invisible." The boy's eyes widened. He could not believe the words. But you are a millionaire." The man smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in his eyes. "I was not born this way. My journey was long, and it was not easy. There was a time when I had no home, no food, and no one to help me. But one day, someone showed me kindness. Just one act changed my life forever." The boy leaned forward, listening closely. His heart pounded. The millionaire's voice grew softer. "That kindness gave me the strength to rise. It pushed me to work harder, to never give up. Until one day, I built everything you see here. But I never forgot what it felt like to be on the streets. And when I saw you last night, child hungry, weak, but still giving your last coins to strangers, I saw myself again. That is why I came for you." The boy's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, "So, you were like me once?" "Yes," the millionaire said firmly. "That is why I believe in you. Because I know the fire inside you. You are more than what the streets say you are." The boy lowered his head, overwhelmed by emotion. His voice trembled. I don't know what to say." The older man placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Say nothing. Just remember, kindness is the seed of greatness. And you, child, have already planted it." But the truth was deeper still. That night, after the boy had gone to rest, the millionaire called the man in the suit into his private study. The room was dark, except for a single lamp on the desk. The older man's eyes gleamed as he whispered, "He reminds me not only of myself, but of someone else." The man in the suit raised an eyebrow. "Who, sir?" The millionaire's voice grew heavy with memory. "My son?" The man in the suit stiffened. "Your son?" "Yes," the older man said quietly. "Years ago I lost him. He was kind, gentle, selfless. Just like this boy. When I saw him give away his last coins, I felt as if my son had returned to me through him." The man in the suit remained silent, but his sharp eyes softened for the first time. The millionaire leaned back, closing his eyes. "This is why I cannot let the boy go back to the streets. He deserves a chance. He deserves a life my son never had." The next day, the boy woke to find the mansion buzzing with activity. Servants hurried in and out, carrying papers, boxes, and clothing. He asked one of them, "What is happening?" The servant smiled kindly. "The master has plans for you, young one." The boy frowned in confusion, but said nothing. He felt nervous as he was led back to the study. The millionaire sat waiting, his expression serious. "Child, today you begin a new path. but with every path comes challenge. Are you ready? The boy hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir. I will try. The older man smiled faintly. Good, because the world will not always be kind to you. There are people who will test you, tempt you, and try to break you. That is why you must be strong. That is why I must teach you. The boy's eyes shone with determination, though fear lingered in his heart. I want to learn, sir. The millionaire leaned closer, his voice low but powerful. Then listen to me carefully, child. Wealth, power, respect, all of these mean nothing if the heart is empty. What makes a man truly rich is not his gold, but his goodness. Never forget that. The boy nodded firmly. I will remember. The older man smiled for the first time that morning. Good. Then your true journey begins now. But as the boy walked out of the study, something strange stirred inside him. Why had the millionaire looked at him with such emotion in his eyes? Why did his voice tremble when he spoke of the past? The boy could not know it yet, but the truth connecting them was deeper than kindness. The truth was hidden, waiting to be revealed at the right time, and when it came, it would shake the boy's heart to its very core. The morning sun filled the mansion with golden light. Birds sang outside, their songs soft and cheerful, but inside the boy's heart there was a storm. He could not stop thinking about the millionaire's words from yesterday. The old man had said his true journey was about to begin. But what did that mean? The boy was only used to streets, hunger, and loneliness. He had never thought of big journeys, big lessons, or big futures. Now suddenly he was inside a rich man's house, wearing clean clothes, eating proper food, and hearing words that sounded like secrets of life itself. It was too much for his small heart. When he was called into the study again, he entered nervously. The millionaire was waiting. Sitting in his large chair, a cane resting by his side. His face looked calm, but his sharp eyes carried wisdom and weight. Sit down, child, he said softly. The boy obeyed, folding his hands on his lap. The older man leaned forward. Yesterday, I told you that wealth means nothing without goodness. Today, I will tell you something more. Something very few people understand. The boy looked up curiously. The millionaire's voice was steady. Life will test you. Sometimes it will give you pain so deep that you will want to give up. Sometimes it will give you chances so big that you will not believe they are real. In both moments, you must remember one thing. Never lose your heart. The boy whispered, My heart. Yes, the millionaire nodded. The world can take away your coins, your food, even your shelter. But if you keep kindness and courage in your heart, no one can truly defeat you. The boy's eyes shone with tears. These were words he had never heard before. On the streets, people had shouted at him, pushed him aside, ignored him. Nobody had spoken to him with such belief, sir. He said softly, Why do you tell me these things? The old man smiled faintly. Because I see a promise in you. A promise that the world needs. The boy tilted his head. What promise? The millionaire leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. The promise that one day you will do for others what you did for that old couple. You will give when you have nothing. You will stand when the world pushes you down. And that is greater than all the gold I own. The boy's small chest swelled with emotion. Nobody had ever spoken of him as if he mattered to the world. He nodded firmly. I will try, sir. I promise I will. The millionaire's eyes softened, and for a moment, the boy thought he saw tears glimmer there. But the old man quickly looked away. Good, he said quietly. Then today, your lessons will begin. The next few days were unlike anything the boy had ever lived. In the mornings, the millionaire taught him words, simple words first, then more difficult ones. The boy learned to read short sentences, to write letters, and even to sign his name. In the afternoons, the boy was taught manners, how to sit at a table, how to greet others, how to hold his shoulders straight at night before sleep. The boy listened to the old man's stories. Stories of failure, of hard work, of betrayal, of courage. Some stories made the boy laugh. Others made him cry. But every story carried a lesson, and with every lesson, the boy grew not just in knowledge, but in spirit. One evening after dinner, the boy sat with the millionaire in the grand hall. The lights were dim, and the fire in the fireplace crackled warmly. The millionaire stared into the flames, his face calm but thoughtful. The boy asked softly, "Sir, why do you work so hard to teach me?" The old man turned slowly to him. His voice was low. "Because, child, I am old. My time is short, but you still have a whole life before you, and I do not want you to waste it the way so many do. I want you to rise. I want you to shine. That is my promise to you." The boy's heart pounded. "Promise?" "Yes," the millionaire said firmly. "I promise that as long as I live, I will guide you. I will make sure you never return to the streets. I will make sure your kindness does not die." The boy's eyes filled with tears. He bowed his head. "Thank you, sir. I will never forget." But even as the boy felt happiness, shadows lurked outside. Not everyone in the mansion agreed with the old man's decision. Some servants whispered, "Why does the master care so much for this street child?" Others muttered, "It is dangerous to trust him. He will only bring trouble, and far away, in the world beyond the mansion." There were men who had been waiting men who knew the millionaire's wealth. Men who wanted it for themselves. They, too, had heard whispers of the boy, and they were not pleased. Late one night, the boy was awakened by faint voices in the hallway. He quietly stepped to the door of his room and pressed his ear against it. Two servants were whispering. "It makes no sense," one said. "The master treats that boy like family." "Yes," the other replied. "Almost as if he sees him as his own blood." The boy's heart skipped a beat. His own blood. Before he could hear more, the footsteps faded away. He returned to his bed, confused, restless, his mind filled with questions. Why would the old man see him as family? What truth was still hidden? The next morning, the millionaire called the boy again to the study. His face looked more serious than ever. "Child," he said firmly, "from today, your training will become harder. I will not treat you as a weak boy anymore. I will treat you as someone who must grow into strength." The boy swallowed nervously, but nodded. "I understand, sir." The old man leaned closer. His voice carried weight, almost like a warning. "Remember, every step you take will lead you closer to the truth. But the truth may not be easy to carry. It may hurt you. It may even break you. Are you ready for that?" The boy's small fists clenched. His voice was steady. "Yes, sir. I am ready." The millionaire studied him for a long moment. Then he smiled faintly. "Good. Then the promise is sealed." But as the boy left the study, he could not shake the feeling that something far bigger was happening, something hidden, something dangerous. And though he did not know it yet, that promise would soon bring trials greater than anything he had ever imagined. The boy woke early that morning. The mansion was still quiet, the halls dim, the air cool. He washed his face in the small basin by the window and looked at his reflection. His eyes seemed different now, the same dull, tired eyes he once had on the streets. They carried a small fire, a glow of hope, but his heart beat fast. He remembered the millionaire's words from yesterday. Your training will become harder. You must be ready for truth and for pain. The boy didn't fully understand what those words meant, but he felt something heavy waiting for him. When he entered the study, the millionaire was already seated, dressed in a neat suit, a cane resting by his side. Beside him stood the man in the suit, the one who always watched silently. The older man's face was calm, but serious. He gestured toward the boy. "Come closer." The boy obeyed. "Today," the millionaire said, "you will leave the walls of this house. You will see the world again, but not as the weak child you were before. You will see it as a student, and you will be tested." The boy's eyes widened. "Tested how?" The old man leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "By choices." The boy frowned. "Choices." "Yes," the millionaire said. "Every man is defined by his choices. Even the smallest one can change his life. Today, you will face them, and I will watch." The boy swallowed hard but nodded. "I am ready, sir." The carriage was waiting outside the mansion. The boy climbed in with the man in the suit, while the millionaire followed slowly behind with his cane. The city streets looked familiar yet strange. He had walked them so many times before, barefoot, hungry, searching for scraps. But now, dressed in clean clothes, sitting in a carriage. He saw them differently. The carriage stopped near a crowded marketplace. People were busy shouting prices, carrying baskets, bargaining loudly. Children ran through the streets. Women sold fruits. Men pulled carts. The boy's eyes widened at the sight. The millionaire stepped out carefully and looked at him. "This is where your test begins." The boy's heart pounded. They walked slowly through the market. The boy noticed a small beggar girl sitting by the road. Her clothes were torn, her face dirty, her hands stretched out. He froze. The image struck him hard. It was like looking at himself not long ago. The millionaire's voice was calm. "What will you do, child?" The boy looked down at his pocket. The old man had given him a few coins that morning. He was supposed to buy bread with them for himself. His stomach growled at the thought of food. He hadn't eaten since dawn, but the girl's thin hand trembled as she reached out for help. The boy hesitated. He looked at the millionaire. The old man's eyes were sharp but silent. The boy took a deep breath. He stepped forward and placed his coins in the girl's hand. Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Thank you," she whispered. The boy's stomach twisted with hunger, but his heart felt light. The millionaire's lips curved into the smallest smile as they moved further into the market. Another challenge appeared. A young man suddenly dropped a basket of apples. The fruits rolled across the dusty street, people stepping on them, carts running over them. The young man bent down, trying to pick them up, but the crowd pushed past him. Ignoring his struggle, the boy watched, uncertain. His stomach was still aching with hunger. He could just keep walking, but something inside him moved. He rushed forward, kneeling beside the man, helping him gather the apples one by one. The crowd continued to push, some even laughing at him, but the boy didn't stop. Finally, the basket was full again. The young man looked at him with relief. You are very kind. May God bless you." The boy smiled faintly. "It's nothing." But when he turned back, he noticed the millionaire watching him carefully, his sharp eyes unreadable. Hours passed. The boy faced small test, choosing between eating for himself or sharing with others. Standing up when someone cheated a poor vendor, helping a lost child find his mother. Each time, he chose kindness. Though it cost him comfort, by the time the sun began to set, he was tired, hungry, and weak. But his heart was strong. The millionaire finally placed a hand on his shoulder. Enough for today. They returned to the mansion that night. The boy sat by the fireplace, sipping warm soup the servants had prepared for him. The millionaire sat opposite him, silent for a long while. Finally, he spoke. "You chose well today, child. Each choice you made showed courage and heart." The boy looked down. "But, sir, I am so tired. My body hurts, and my stomach still feels empty. Was it truly the right thing?" The old man's voice grew firm. "Yes, the right path is never easy. But remember, this strength does not come from filling your stomach. Strength comes from filling your heart. And today you filled it with goodness." The boy's eyes glistened. He whispered, "I will keep trying, sir." The millionaire smiled faintly. "Good, because greater trials are coming. And they will not only test your kindness, they will test your spirit." The boy's chest tightened. "Greater trials?" "Yes," the old man said. His eyes turned dark, his voice low. "The world outside is not only poor and hungry, it is also cruel and dangerous. And soon it will come knocking on this very door." The boy shivered. He didn't know what the old man meant, but he felt a storm was near, and when it arrived, it would change everything. The mansion stood quiet under the silver light of the moon. The tall gates were closed, the guards walked slowly along the paths, and the great hall was dark except for one flickering lamp. Inside, the boy lay on his bed, tired from the day's trials. His body still ached from hunger and work, but his heart carried a strange warmth. The millionaire's words echoed in his mind. Strength does not come from filling your stomach. Strength comes from filling your heart. He smiled faintly, holding the blanket close, and slowly drifted into sleep. But outside, the world was not quiet. Far beyond the mansion gates, in the dark corners of the city, men whispered in secret rooms. Their faces were hidden by shadows, their voices low and sharp. One of them slammed his fist on the table. "The old man has brought a boy into his house? Do you know what that means?" Another leaned forward, his eyes narrow. "Yes, he plans to give the child what belongs to us. His fortune, his name, his power." A third man laughed coldly. "And we cannot let that happen." The first man's voice turned into a growl. "Then it is decided. The boy must not stay in the mansion. We will strike soon." The next morning, the boy woke to bright sunlight and cheerful sounds. Servants hurried about, preparing breakfast, carrying trays, sweeping floors. Everything seemed normal, but the millionaire's face was not at peace. When the boy entered the study, he noticed the old man staring out of the window, his cane resting by his side. "Sir?" the boy asked softly. The millionaire turned slowly. His eyes were sharp, but his face carried lines of worry. "Child, there are things you do not yet know. Shadows are moving around us. You must be careful." The boy frowned. "Shadows?" "Yes," the old man said quietly. "Not everyone is happy with your presence here. Some believe I should not trust you. Others—" His voice trailed off, heavy with silence. The boy's chest tightened. "Do they want to hurt me?" The millionaire studied him for a long moment before answering. "Perhaps, but you must not fear. Fear is the enemy's greatest weapon. Stand tall, no matter how dark the night becomes." The boy swallowed hard and nodded. "I will try, sir." That evening, the boy went to the garden to clear his mind. The roses glowed red in the fading light. The air smelled fresh with dew, and the fountain trickled softly. He sat near the fountain, dipping his hand in the cool water. For a moment he forgot his worries, but then he felt a Ties watching him. He turned quickly, but the garden looked empty. The guards were far away at the gate, and no servant was near. Still, the feeling did not leave. It grew stronger. His small body shivered. He stood, glancing around. "Who's there?" No answer. Only silence. He hurried back inside, his heart racing. Later that night, when the mansion grew silent, the boy heard a sound at his window. Tap. Tap! Tap! He sat up, fear tightening his chest. Slowly, he stepped closer. The curtains swayed gently, the glass reflecting the pale moon. Another tap, and then he saw it. A shadowy figure outside the window, half hidden. Watching him, the boy gasped and stumbled backward. The figure vanished into the night. He ran to the study, where the millionaire sat awake, reading under a lamp. His voice shook as he cried, "Sir, someone was at my window." The old man looked up sharply. His face darkened. He rose slowly, gripping his cane. "It has begun," he whispered. The boy trembled. "Who was it?" The millionaire placed a hand on his shoulder. His voice was steady but grave. "Enemy's child. People who fear what you might become. They will not stop easily. But you must be strong. Do you understand?" The boy's lips quivered, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." The old man sighed deeply. "Then it is time I told you more." The study fell silent as the millionaire's voice grew heavy with memory. "Long ago, when I was young, I trusted people who were close to me. Partners, friends, even those I called brothers. But greed is a fire that burns even the strongest bond. They betrayed me. They tried to take everything I had built." The boy listened, eyes wide. The old man continued. "I survived, but the betrayal left scars. And now, those same shadows have returned. They see you here, child. They fear what you mean to me. They fear you may one day stand in my place. That is why they are watching. That is why they will strike." The boy's heart pounded. "What? What will they do? The millionaire's eyes grew colder. They will try to break you, to frighten you, to drive you away, perhaps even worse. But remember, true strength is not in fighting with fists, but in standing tall when the world tries to crush you. The boy swallowed, whispering, "I will not run, sir. I promise." The old man studied him with pride and sadness. "Good. Then you are ready for the storm." For the next few days, the mansion felt different. Guards doubled at the gates, servants moved with nervous steps, and the boy never left his room alone. But still, strange things happened. At night, doors creaked open without reason. Once, the boy found a letter slipped under his door. The paper was rough, the words written in sharp strokes, "Leave the mansion, or you will regret it." His hands shook as he carried it to the millionaire. The old man read it calmly, then tore it into pieces. "Do not fear their words, child. Cowards hide behind threats. You must rise above them." But the boy could not sleep that night. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his small hands clutching the blanket. Every sound in the dark felt like danger. One night, he decided to walk to the hall for water. The mansion was quiet, the lamps dim. His bare feet tapped softly on the cold floor. Then he heard footsteps. He froze, slow, heavy footsteps in the darkness. Coming closer, the boy's chest tightened. He pressed his back against the wall, peering around the corner. A tall shadow moved in the hallway. Its steps were firm, its shoulders broad. The boy could not see the face, only the dark outline. The figure stopped, turning slowly. As if it sensed him, the boy gasped. The figure stepped closer. "Child." The boy jumped, his heart pounding. The shadow stepped into the light. It was the man in the suit. His sharp eyes studied the boy. "You should not walk alone at night," he said quietly. The boy exhaled in relief, though his legs still shook. I was only thirsty." The man in the suit said nothing for a long moment. Then his voice lowered. "The shadows are closer than you think. Do not let your guard down." The boy's heart skipped. "Do you know who they are?" The man's eyes darkened. "I know enough. And soon, so will you." Before the boy could ask more, the man walked away, his steps fading into silence. The boy stood frozen, the warning echoing in his ears. He returned to his room, lying in bed with wide eyes. His heart refused to rest. He whispered to himself, "The shadows are closer. Closer than I think," and he knew something was coming. Something that would not just knock on the mansion's door, but break it wide open. The night was colder than usual. The wind blew hard against the tall iron gates of the mansion, rattling them softly. The guards walked in pairs, their lanterns glowing faintly in the dark. Everything seemed calm, but deep in the shadows, eyes were watching. Inside, the boy lay awake in his bed. He had not slept properly for many nights. Every creak, every whisper of wind, every flicker of light made him think of the warning. The shadows are closer than you think. His heart beat fast. He tried to calm himself by looking out the window at the stars. But the night sky gave him no peace. Far beyond the walls, 3 men waited. Their clothes were dark, their faces hidden by scarves. One held a rope, another carried a knife, and the third, clearly the leader, studied the mansion with cold, sharp eyes. He whispered, "Tonight, we end this. The boy will not see another sunrise in this house." The others nodded silently. They moved. Back inside, the mansion seemed quiet. The millionaire sat in his study, still awake, his hand resting on a closed book. His cane leaned against the desk, and a faint fire glowed in the fireplace. The man in the suit stood near the window, his sharp eyes scanning the grounds. Suddenly he stiffened. "They are here." The millionaire's face hardened. He rose slowly, gripping his cane. So the shadows have finally stepped into the light. Outside, the men climbed the wall with the rope, slipping past the guards unnoticed. They moved quickly across the garden, hiding behind statues and trees, till they reached the side of the mansion. One of them pulled a small tool from his pocket and began working on the lock of a window. Within seconds, the window creaked open. The leader whispered, "Quiet now. Find the boy." The boy, still restless in his room, suddenly felt a chill. He sat up in bed, his ears straining. There it was again, a sound soft, faint, like a window being opened. His small hands gripped the blanket. His heart hammered. Then he heard footsteps, slow, careful. Inside the mansion, the boy's eyes widened. He slid quietly off the bed, tiptoeing toward the door. He pressed his ear against it. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and then voices. Where is his room? Upstairs, near the corner. The boy froze, terror flooding his chest. They were coming for him. Meanwhile, the man in the suit moved silently through the hallway. His sharp eyes caught the faintest movement, a shadow slipping across the wall. He clenched his fists. "They dare to enter here," he muttered under his breath. From his coat, he drew a hidden blade, small but deadly. The millionaire, moving slower, followed with his cane. His old but fierce eyes burned with anger. "This house will not fall tonight," he whispered. The boy pressed his back against the door of his room, his breath trembling. He wanted to scream, to run, but his legs felt frozen. Suddenly, the doorknob shook. He gasped, stumbling backward. A rough voice whispered outside, "He's in here." The boy's chest tightened. He backed away until his shoulders hit the wall. His small hands pressed against it as if trying to disappear. The knob turned slowly. The door began to creak open and then stop. A thunderous voice echoed down the hallway. The boy's eyes widened. It was the millionaire. The intruders froze. The door slammed shut again. The leader turned sharply. There he was, the old man, standing tall at the end of the hallway, his cane in hand, his silver hair glowing in the dim light. Beside him stood the man in the suit, his blade gleaming faintly. The leader sneered. "So the old wolf is still awake." The millionaire's voice was cold. "You should not have come here." The man in the suit stepped forward, his voice sharp as steel. "Leave now or face me." But the intruders only laughed. "We are not afraid of an old man and his servant. Give us the boy and no one gets hurt." The boy, trembling inside his room, pressed his ear to the door. His heart raced as he heard every word. The millionaire's reply was firm and unshaken. "The boy stays." Over my dead body? The hallway fell silent. Then, without warning, the intruders rushed forward. The man in the suit moved like lightning, his blade flashing. He struck one man across the arm, making him drop his knife with a cry of pain. The millionaire lifted his cane and struck the second intruder hard on the leg. The man stumbled, cursing loudly. The leader lunged, but the old man stood his ground, eyes fierce. "Get back!" the millionaire thundered. For a moment, the intruders faltered, but their greed pushed them on. Inside the room, the boy shook with fear. He could hear the clash, the shouts, the heavy thuds of the fight. His small hands clenched. He whispered to himself, "I cannot just hide. They are fighting because of me." His eyes darted to the desk near his bed. A heavy candle stand rested there. He grabbed it with both hands, his heart pounding slowly. Pushed the door open just a little, peeking through the crack. The hallway was chaos. The man in the suit fought fiercely, blocking every strike. The millionaire stood tall, his cane striking with surprising strength for his age. But the intruders were strong, and there were 3 of them. The boy's breath shook. He wanted to help, but his legs trembled. Then he saw the leader raising his knife, aiming straight for the old man's back. The boy's eyes widened. Without thinking, he ran out of the room, candle stand in hand. "Stop," he cried. The leader turned just as the boy swung the heavy stand with all his strength. Crack! The metal struck the leader's arm. The knife clattered to the floor. The man roared in pain, stumbling back. The millionaire turned, shocked. "Child." The intruders were stunned. For a moment, everything froze. The boy stood trembling, his small hands gripping the candle stand, his chest heaving. "I will not let you hurt him," he shouted, though his voice shook. The leader's eyes burned with rage. "You little rat." But before he could finish, The man in the suit struck him hard, sending him crashing to the ground. The other two, seeing their leader fall, panicked. "Run," one shouted. Within seconds, they scrambled down the hallway. Disappearing into the night through the same window they had entered, the mansion grew quiet, and the boy dropped the candle stand, his legs shaking. He could barely breathe. The millionaire hurried to him, holding his shoulders firmly. His old eyes were wide, filled with both fear and pride. "Child, what have you done?" he whispered. The boy's lips trembled. I couldn't hide, sir. They were going to hurt you." The old man's eyes softened. He pulled the boy into his arms, holding him tightly. "You are braver than I ever imagined." The man in the suit stood silently nearby, his eyes watching the boy with a new respect. But in his sharp gaze, there was also worry, because he knew this was only the beginning. The shadows had tested the boy once. They would not stop now, and next time, they would come back stronger. The mansion was quiet again, but the silence was heavy, almost painful. The broken window let in the cold night air, and the faint smell of dust and sweat lingered in the hallway. Guards rushed in, confused and alarmed. But the intruders were already gone. The boy stood still, his small body trembling. The candle stand lay on the floor where he had dropped it, the metal bent from the force of the blow. His hand still shook as if the weight of it remained. The millionaire held his shoulders firmly, steadying him. His old eyes searched the boy's pale face. "Child, you should have stayed hidden." "Why'd you come out?" The boy's lips trembled. I couldn't. They were going to hurt you. I couldn't watch." For a long moment, the old man said nothing. Then his grip softened, and he pulled the boy into his arms. His voice shook, low but full of feeling. "You foolish, brave child." The man in the suit stood nearby, silent as always, but his sharp eyes lingered on the boy. There was a flicker of respect there, but also a shadow of concern. Later in the study, the three of them sat together. The fire burned low, throwing dim light across the room. The boy sat quietly, his hands wrapped around a warm cup of milk. He barely touched it, his mind still racing with the images of knives, shouts, and the crash of metal. The millionaire leaned heavily on his cane, exhaustion showing on his face. "They came for you," he said softly. The boy looked up, his eyes wide. "For me?" "Yes," the old man said. His voice carried both anger and sorrow. "They want to break you before you even rise. Someone out there fears what you might become." The boy's heart pounded. "But I am just a boy." The man in the suit finally spoke, his voice sharp. "Not anymore. The moment you lifted that candle stand, you stepped into a war you don't yet understand." The boy shivered. The millionaire tapped his cane against the floor, his voice firm again. "We must prepare. Tonight was only a taste. More will come. They will not stop." The boy's eyes filled with fear. "Then what will happen to me, sir? Will they keep coming until they—" He stopped, unable to say the word. The old man's expression softened. "Not while I live." The boy's chest tightened. "But you almost got hurt because of me." The millionaire placed a trembling hand on the boy's. "Listen to me. Your courage saved me tonight. Do not regret it. Do not fear it. But understand courage has a price." The boy's throat ached. "What price?" The man in the suit answered instead, his tone like a blade. "Pain, loss, sacrifice. That is the price." The boy lowered his gaze, his small fingers curling around the cup. That night, when he finally returned to his room, the boy lay awake. The shadows on the wall seemed alive, moving like dark figures. He pulled the blanket tightly around himself, but it gave no comfort. His heart whispered questions he could not silence. Why me? Why do they want me? Why must I suffer more, even after leaving the streets? He closed his eyes, and tears slipped down his cheeks. "I am so tired," he whispered to himself, "so tired of being afraid." But then he remembered the old man's words, "Your courage saved me tonight." His chest ached with both fear and pride. The next morning, the mansion felt different. Guards stood tighter at the gates, the windows were checked twice, and the servants moved in nervous silence. Everyone knew something had changed. At breakfast, the boy ate quietly, but his appetite was gone. The millionaire watched him carefully. "You are silent today," the old man said. The boy nodded faintly. "I keep thinking about last night." "As you should," the old man replied. "It was not just an attack. It was a message." The boy frowned. "A message?" "Yes," the man in the suit answered. He stood behind the millionaire, his voice calm but hard. The message was simple. "You are not safe anywhere." The boy's stomach twisted. The old man leaned closer, his voice steady. "But hear me well, child. Safety is not found in walls or guards. It is found here." He touched the boy's chest, over his heart. "If your spirit is strong, no shadow can break you." The boy swallowed, trying to be brave. "I will try, sir." The old man's eyes softened. "Good, because trials are coming, greater than last night." Days passed. The boy trained harder than ever. He studied long hours, practiced speaking clearly, and worked with his hands until they were sore. The man in the suit began teaching him how to move quietly, how to listen to every sound, how to stay calm even when danger was close. At night, the boy often woke from nightmares, blades glinting in the dark, rough hands pulling him away, the old man falling. He would sit up, sweating and trembling, staring at the door until morning. One night, after a nightmare, he whispered to himself, "Maybe I am cursed. Maybe trouble will always follow me." But deep down, another voice answered, "Or maybe you were chosen." One evening, as the sun sank low and painted the mansion in gold, the boy sat with the millionaire in the garden. Birds sang softly, but the air carried a strange heaviness. The boy asked quietly, "Sir, why do you care for me?" "I am only a poor boy. I am nothing." The old man looked at him for a long moment. His voice trembled, almost like a confession. "Because once, I too was nothing." The boy's eyes widened. The millionaire continued, his tone heavy with memory. "Long ago, I was a boy like you, alone, lost, hungry. Someone gave me a chance, just as I give you one now, and I swore I would do the same for another soul one day." The boy's heart swelled, tears burning his eyes. "So, you saved me because someone once saved you." The old man nodded slowly. "Yes, and just as I was tested, so will you be." The boy lowered his gaze, whispering, "I will not fail you." The old man placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. "You must not fail yourself." That night, after the boy went to bed, the millionaire remained in the study with the man in the suit. "He grows braver," the old man said. Softly, "Yes," the suit man replied. "But bravery will draw more enemies." The old man's eyes hardened. "Let them come. He must face the price of courage, or he will never become what he was meant to be." The man in the suit's face darkened. "And if that price is too high?" The old man looked at the flickering fire. His voice dropped low. "Then we will lose him." In his room, the boy dreamed restlessly. In his dream, he stood in a dark forest, shadows circling him. He held the candle stand again, but this time it felt heavy. Too heavy to lift. From the darkness a voice whispered, "Courage has a price. Are you ready to pay it?" The boy shook, whispering, "Yes. But what if I cannot?" The shadows only laughed. He woke with a cry, his chest heaving, his eyes wet. He hugged his knees tightly, whispering to himself, "I will not break. I will not." But deep inside, fear coiled around him like a serpent. The mansion slept in silence. But far beyond its walls, in the city's dark alleys, the same three intruders nursed their wounds. Their leader's arm was bandaged, his face twisted in fury. He slammed his fist on the table. "The boy humiliated me. A child. I will not rest until I see him broken." One of the others asked nervously, "But he has the old man and that bodyguard. How can we fight them?" The leader's eyes burned with hate. "We do not fight them. We break the boy from the inside. His courage will destroy him. If we strike where it hurts most, back at the mansion, the boy stared at the moon from his window. His small voice whispered to the night, "Please, let me be strong. Please let me protect him as he protects me." But far away, the shadows were already moving again, and soon. The boy would learn the cruel truth: courage is never free. It demands a price, and someone, somewhere would have to pay it. The days after the break-in passed in uneasy silence. The mansion was guarded more tightly, but the boy could still feel fear crawling under his skin. Every night he woke to the sound of footsteps that were not there. Every shadow on the wall seemed alive, the millionaire noticed. He said nothing at first, but his old eyes grew heavier with concern each time he looked at the boy. One morning, as they sat at the long dining table, the old man asked quietly, "Did you sleep last night, child?" The boy lowered his gaze. "Not much, sir. Nightmares again?" The boy nodded. "Yes. I keep seeing them come back. I keep seeing you hurt." The old man placed his hand gently on the boy's. "Dreams are only shadows of fear. They cannot harm you. Remember what I told you, safety lies here." He touched the boy's chest, above his heart. The boy tried to smile, but it faded quickly. He whispered, "But the shadows feel stronger than me." The old man's voice grew firmer. "Then you must grow stronger than them." That same night, far away in a hidden corner of the city, the three intruders gathered again. Their leader's injured arm was wrapped in cloth, but his fury was greater than his pain. He slammed a bottle on the table. "That boy dared to strike me, a child. And worse, the old man protects him as if he is more than just a stray." One of his men asked nervously, "Then, what do we do?" The leader leaned forward, his eyes burning with hate. "We cannot beat the old man head on, and that bodyguard is too sharp. But the boy? The boy is young, weak inside. We will not attack his body. We will attack his spirit." "How?" A cruel smile curved on the leader's lips. "By making him doubt everything he believes. By turning his own courage against him." The next day, the boy was sent with the man in the suit into the city for errands. They rode quietly through the crowded streets. The boy glanced out the carriage window, watching people shout, bargain, and hurry about their lives. But his thoughts were far away. When they stopped at a bakery, the man in the suit stepped out first, his sharp eyes scanning the street. He ordered bread and fruit while the boy waited near the carriage. That was when it happened. A voice behind him whispered, "Little one." The boy turned. A woman stood in the shadow of a building, her face half hidden by a scarf. Her eyes glistened with tears. In her hands, she held a dirty bundle of cloth. "Please," she whispered, stepping closer. "Please help me. My baby is sick. He has not eaten for days." The boy's heart clenched. He saw the tiny face in the bundle, thin, pale, weak. The boy's voice shook. "I don't have money." The woman's eyes filled with desperation. "Please, you live with the rich man, don't you? You have food, warmth. My child has nothing. If you have any kindness, help me." The boy swallowed hard. His hands trembled. He wanted to run to the man in the suit, but something inside stopped him. "If I turn away, am I still the boy who chose kindness?" He whispered, "Wait here. I will try." When the man in the suit returned with the basket of bread, he noticed the boy looking uneasy. "What is it?" he asked sharply. The boy hesitated. "Nothing, sir." But inside, guilt gnawed at him. That night, he sneaked some food from the kitchen and hid it under his coat. When the house grew quiet, he slipped out through the garden gate. The woman was waiting in the alley nearby, holding the baby. Her face lit up when she saw the food. "Bless you, child," she whispered, tears falling. "You are truly an angel." The boy smiled faintly, though his heart still raced with fear of being caught. "Please, keep him safe." The woman kissed his forehead. "You have a pure heart. Do not lose it." Then she disappeared into the darkness. The boy returned to the mansion, slipping back into his bed before anyone noticed, but what he did not. No, what he could not see was that the woman's smile had vanished the moment she turned the corner. She no longer looked desperate. She looked cold. She handed the food to the leader, who stood waiting in the shadows. "It worked," she said flatly. "He trusted me." The leader smirked. "Good, the boy is soft. Too soft. We will pull him apart, one piece at a time." The next day the boy tried to act normal, but guilt weighed on him. At breakfast, the millionaire studied his face carefully. "You are hiding something," the old man said. The boy's chest tightened. "No, sir, child," the old man said softly. "I can see it in your eyes. What troubles you?" The boy looked down. He wanted to tell the truth, but fear silenced him. The old man sighed but did not push further. "Very well. But remember, secrets grow heavy. They will break you if you carry them too long." The boy nodded faintly, his throat aching. That night, he went again. He told himself it was the right thing. He told himself kindness was more important than rules. But each time, the woman's story grew darker. "My baby is worse now," she said one night, her tears shining in the moonlight. "He needs medicine. Please, can you bring me coins?" The boy's hand shook. He knew he was not supposed to take money without permission, but he also saw the tiny, weak child coughing in her arms. I will try," he whispered, and so he stole. A small coin from a drawer, a little more from a servant's pouch. He hated himself for it. He told himself it was for a good reason. "Just one more time," he whispered to his reflection in the mirror. "Just once more." But soon, the servants began to notice. Coins missing. Food disappearing. Whispers spread through the mansion. One evening, the man in the suit confronted the boy in the study. His eyes were sharp, his voice cold. "Tell me, child, have you been stealing?" The boy froze. His lips trembled. I. "Answer me," the man pressed. The boy's eyes filled with tears. "It was not for me. It was for a woman and her baby. They were starving." The man in the suit's eyes narrowed. "A woman? Baby?" "Yes," the boy whispered. "She waits in the alley. I couldn't ignore her. Please believe me." The man said nothing. He only turned and left the room. That night, the boy was summoned to the study. The millionaire sat waiting, his cane beside him. His face was grave. "Child," he said softly, "is it true? Have you been giving food and money to a stranger?" The boy's tears fell. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, but I couldn't let her baby suffer." The old man's eyes closed, pain flickering across his face. He whispered, "Oh, child, you do not yet see the world as it truly is." The boy's chest ached. "Did I do wrong, sir?" The old man's voice was heavy. "Kindness is never wrong, but unguarded kindness can be a trap, and I fear you have walked into one." The boy's breath caught. His heart pounded with dread. "A trap." The old man nodded slowly. "Yes, and if I am right, you are already in danger." That same night, the woman returned to the leader with another bundle of coins. The leader laughed coldly. "Perfect. The boy steals for us, and he thinks he is saving a baby. Soon we will twist his heart so much, he won't know what is true anymore." He leaned closer to the woman, his voice sharp. "Tomorrow, tell him this: if he does not bring more, the baby will die. Let his own guilt destroy him." Back in the mansion, the boy sat alone in his room, tears streaking his cheeks. He whispered to himself, "Did I help? Or did I make things worse? Am I good or am I bad?" The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to whisper back, mocking him, and deep inside, fear grew, because he no longer knew if he was saving a life or feeding the darkness. The mansion was wrapped in silence, but the boy could not sleep. His heart was too heavy, weighed down by guilt and confusion. He sat by the window, staring out at the moonlit garden. His small voice whispered into the night, "Am I helping her? Or am I being fooled?" But no answer came, only the rustle of leaves in the cold wind. The next day, he tried to hide his worry, but the millionaire saw through him. The old man's sharp eyes watched the boy closely during breakfast. "You are not yourself," the old man said quietly. The boy forced a smile. I'm fine, sir. But the old man leaned forward, his voice low. Child, truth is lighter than lies. Lies way down the heart until it breaks. Be careful. The boy's chest tightened. He wanted to confess everything, but fear chained his tongue. That evening, he slipped away again. His small legs carried him through the dark garden, past the gate, and into the alley. The woman was waiting, the baby bundle in her arms. Her eyes were red with tears. Please, child, you must bring more. My baby grows weaker every day. Without medicine, he will not live through the week. The boy's eyes filled with tears. I already gave you food and coins. The old man will notice if I take more. The woman fell to her knees, clutching the bundle. Then you will let a baby die? Can you live with that on your soul? The boy's heart broke. He nodded quickly, wiping his tears. I will bring more tomorrow. I promise. The woman smiled faintly, but in the shadows behind her, the leader's cold eyes gleamed. The next morning, the boy searched desperately for coins. He checked drawers, cupboards, even the servants' rooms. But there was nothing left to take. His hands shook. He whispered to himself, if I fail her, the baby will die. I cannot fail. At last his eyes fell on the old man's desk in the study. A leather pouch rested there, heavy with coins. The boy's chest tightened. He stared at it for a long time. Torn between fear and guilt, finally with trembling fingers, he reached out and slipped the pouch under his coat, but he did not know the man in the suit had been watching from the shadows. When the boy left the study, the man stepped out, his sharp eyes dark with disappointment. He went straight to the millionaire that night. When the boy returned from the alley, he found the old man waiting in the study. The firelight flickered across his face, casting long shadows. His cane rested against his chair, his hands folded before him. Sit, child, he said softly. The boy froze, his heart pounding. Slowly he sat down. The old man's eyes bore into him. You went again, didn't you? The boy's lips trembled. Yes, sir. But please, you must understand there is a woman, and her baby is dying. I couldn't turn away. The old man's face darkened with sorrow. And where is this woman? In the alley, sir. I gave her food and money. She thanked me. She said I saved her child. The old man leaned closer, his voice sharp. Did you ever see the baby's face clearly? The boy blinked. Yes, I think so. He looked weak, very weak. The old man's hand trembled on the desk. Child, you have been tricked. The boy's breath caught. His chest tightened. What? What do you mean? The old man's voice shook with anger and pain. The baby is nothing but cloth, a bundle wrapped to fool you. The woman is no mother. She is a thief, sent to lure you into a trap. And you, with your soft heart, gave them everything. The boy's eyes widened. His face turned pale. No, that can't be true. She cried, she begged. You saw what they wanted you to see, the old man said firmly. They used your kindness. And now, because of your secrecy, they know the mansion is weak. The boy's tears spilled. His small voice broke. No, I didn't mean. I only wanted to help. The old man slammed his cane against the floor. Foolish child. Your innocence nearly betrayed us all. The boy flinched, sobbing quietly. The man in the suit stepped forward. His voice was colder than ever. I warned you. Unprotected kindness is a weapon that enemies will use against you. The boy looked up at him with wet eyes. But if I don't help, then what am I? Am I not cruel then? The man's eyes softened just slightly. Kindness is good, but blind kindness is dangerous. You must learn the difference. The boy buried his face in his hands. His small body shook with sobs. The old man's anger faded slowly, replaced by deep sadness. He reached out with a trembling hand and touched the boy's hair. Child, he whispered, you are not bad. You are not cruel. But tonight, you lost something. The boy lifted his tearful face. What did I lose? The old man's eyes glistened. Your innocence? The boy cried until he fell asleep in the chair, his head resting on his arms. The old man watched him, his heart heavy. The man in the suit said quietly, "The enemies will not stop now. They know he is easy to wound. They will return." The old man's voice was low. "Then we must make him stronger, before the shadows consume him." The next day, the boy walked through the mansion in silence. The servants whispered. The guards avoided his eyes. He felt the weight of shame pressing down on him. He stood in front of the mirror in his room, staring at his reflection. His face looked different, older somehow, worn by guilt. He whispered to himself, "I only wanted to do good, but I brought danger instead. Maybe I don't deserve to stay here." His heart ached as if it were breaking. Meanwhile, in the dark alley, the leader laughed as he counted the coins. "Perfect," he sneered. "The boy is broken. His heart is confused, his trust shattered. Next time, he will make an even bigger mistake." The woman beside him smirked. He truly believed the baby was real. Such a sweet little fool. The leader's eyes gleamed with cruelty. Let him drown in his guilt. The more he doubts himself, the easier he will be to destroy. That night, the boy sat alone in his room, hugging his knees. Tears slid down his cheeks as he whispered into the darkness, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I am just a fool. Maybe I will never be strong." The shadows seemed to laugh around him. And, though the old man and the bodyguard vowed to protect him, they both knew the truth. The boy's greatest enemy was no longer outside the walls. It was inside his heart.